work to do with To Kill a Mockingbird. But it's always good to have goals. In 1980, I can remember clearly Ronald Reagan using these words. He said, are we better off today than we were 4 years ago? So I modify that just a little bit, and I want to ask you, are we better off today? Are you better off today than you were $4 trillion ago? It's not like we got anything for the $4 trillion. It might be a different story. I want to talk about some principles, but I always want to start in a good place. And I want to start with some ancient scripture. Proverbs 27:12 compares a fool and a wise man. And it says that a fool looks ahead and sees danger and does nothing. And it says a wise man looks ahead, and when he sees trouble, he does something in advance of the trouble arriving so that he doesn't have to deal with it. In other words, he takes action now, and that's what we're doing. There's nothing more important than knowing the difference between a fool and a wise man. So I ask you this, in light of where we want to go, in light of where we are right now, and in light of where we've been, what's the wise thing to do for our nation right now? Live free! Now, I'm not a politician. Round of applause, please. I'm not a reporter, and I'm not a college professor. And I'm not a lawyer. Hey! The end! I'm a husband, a father of 3 boys, 14, 12, and 4, and a small business owner. And I had a turning point in my life, April 28, 2009, when the president said, we've begun the work of remaking America. And for the last 18 years, as a coach for small business owners, and as a small business owner myself, I had been helping people reach their goals. But a weird thought hit my mind. I spent the last 18 years helping people reach their goals, and now I'm committed to spending the rest of my life to make sure one person doesn't reach his goals. Are you with me? So today, April 15th, to get myself in the spirit, I dropped off my tax returns on the walk over here. So I'm boiling just a little bit, but we find ourselves stuck between a barack and a hard place. So what do we do about it? My 14-year-old did poorly on a test about a year ago, and I was quizzing him as to why, and he said, well, I tried my hardest. And I said, well, you didn't study. And he said, yeah, I know, Dad, but after the test started, I tried my hardest. Well, he got a C. And everybody here wants liberty. Everybody here wants individual freedom. It's important to have that word individual in front of the word freedom or liberty. But we have to get ready for it. Because right now, we've got a C- in liberty. We have the potential for an A. That's what they said about my son. You've got a lot of potential. Well, we've got a lot of potential, but we've got to get ready for it. We need to know the principles that the country was established on, and I want to share a few of them with you as a reminder, and for all the kids listening here, because that's where it starts. To bring back my other son, who's 12, he had an argument with his history teacher as to whether we were a democracy or a republic. I don't know exactly who won, but I know who was right. The founding principles of liberty include limited government. Say it with me, limited government. Limited government. Strong property rights. Strong property rights. Governmental checks and balances. Free markets. Free markets. Debt avoidance. Equal rights. Not equal things. All right, that's for the country. That translates into some responsibilities and expectations, some that Jeff was referring to for us as individuals. That includes self-reliance, personal initiative, individual responsibility, and resourcefulness. but there's an attitude that has seeped into our culture. People are talking about socialism, they're talking about statism, they're talking about fascism, as though any of those are acceptable. For the last year and a half, we've talked about the toxic assets that have severely damaged our country and damaged individual lives. We as individuals can bounce back from a financial catastrophe. We as a country can bounce back from a financial catastrophe, even from an economic meltdown. What we cannot bounce back from are toxic attitudes. And the toxic attitudes that have been seeping into our culture are far more damaging than any sort of financial problem that we have. Let me identify a few of them for you. One, fairness. Fairness does not show up in the founding documents for good reason. It doesn't show up in the Bible either. Because in order to make things fair, meaning equal results, you have to strip one person's liberty in order to equalize things for the other side. Equal opportunity? Absolutely. Equal results? No way. Attitude number two, or I call them statitudes, for state-induced attitudes. Victimitis. Now, victimitis is an inflammation of the grievance gland, which is located, in this general vicinity. When you see yourself as a victim, you become immobilized. When you're immobilized, you don't take action. When you don't take action, ultimately somebody has to come along and take care of yourself. We've got an administration right now that wants to proliferate the idea of victims. Victims have to depend on who? Big government. Next, envy. Envy is the worst of all the vices, just about. And never before have we had or at least in more than 100 years, have we had a president that intentionally went about stoking class warfare. One who has the gall to declare war on the successful in this country, but doesn't have the guts to declare war on the terrorists. What's up with that? Something for nothing. That's the next attitude. Where in the world did we get the idea that you could get something for nothing? A few years ago, there was a product on TV called Exercise in a Bottle. Don't raise your hand if you bought it. It was even tempting for me. And I teach personal responsibility. But my God, if we have a country that would invest in a product called Exercise in a Bottle, you can see the problem that we're dealing with. And it's not a problem on the outside, it's a problem on the inside. There is not a political solution to character problems, and there never will be. And finally, political correctness. Political correctness is about training our young people primarily to interpret and describe the world around them and the circumstances around them in a way that furthers the progressive agenda, which creates this relative world where nothing is wrong, just different. Isn't that nice and gentle? It's not wrong, just different. It's so important that we teach our kids the truth. The truth is not always something that is fun to talk about. It is not always pretty. It is not always clean, but it never goes away.
Good luck.
Now, think about this. In the last year, these statitudes, fairness, victimitis, envy, something for nothing, and political correctness, they have begun to blur our values. They've caused this moral confusion. The productive, not the unproductive, are labeled as society's problem. The irresponsible, not the responsible, are rewarded. We're told that spending helps us to get out of debt. We take one person's earning, hand it to somebody else, and call it justice. We worship the earth, but not its creator. We blame guns for killing, society for the addict, and the rich for the poor. We extol diversity and tolerance, but vilify politically incorrect speech. We suppress excellence, achievement, and individual